we have an extraordinary opportunity through this institute to think about our students, do scholarship of teaching, understand our students. How do we connect with the students? How do we become better students of our own subject matter and then bring it to our students? Before I introduce our keynote speaker, I would like to acknowledge Professor Joan Naik, who is leading this program. Give her a round of applause. And also our provost and our college-wide deans, because not only they are helping this program, they are also contributing from their budgets. So give them a round of applause. And of course, our colleagues at e-learning, innovation, and teaching excellence, they are also contributing significantly to this program. Dr. Mills, thank you. And we should also thank all our case professors of the year and also Montgomery College professor of the years, because they will be helping us with this program as well. So give them a round of applause. Now I have the pleasure of introducing the president of Goucher College, Dr. José Antonio Bowen. He's inspiring, provocative, and impressive. He has 4 degrees from Stanford, an undergraduate degree in chemistry, a graduate degree in music. Dr. Bowen has also composed a symphony which was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in music. In addition, he has written over 100 scholarly articles and have been featured in the New York Times, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, the Chronicle of Higher Education, the PBS NewsHour, and on NPR. He has won numerous teaching awards, including the Stanford Centennial Award for Undergraduate Teaching, and will be awarded the Ernest L. Boyer Award for significant contributions to American higher education from the new American colleges and universities this month. Dr. Bowen has been the president of Goucher for 4 years. 1 year after Dr. Bowen became president of Goucher College, it was listed by US News and World Report as one of the top 10 most innovative liberal art colleges in the United States. He has introduced data analytics, a new 3 Rs, and has recently published 2 books on pedagogy, The Naked Teaching and The Naked Teaching Techniques. His new book, A New 3 Rs, Using Behavioral Science to Prepare Students for a New Learning Economy, will be published by Johns Hopkins in 2019. Let's welcome Dr. Bowen.
Good morning. Good morning. When you ask students what matters 10, 20, 40 years out, lots and lots of research, nobody ever says courses and credits. Right? They say people, Professor Jones and Professor Smith and her attention to me in writing or in my lab or whatever. So your personal interaction, your relationships is always going to be where the primary value is. So that leads to a couple of other things. One is that how do we maximize that in the classroom, right? So actually content delivery is not your maximum value. They can get that from the internet. Right? Your maximum value is your care for students, right? Students learn more when they perceive that you care about them and their learning. Notice I said perceive. You don't actually have to care. I'm kidding, right? No, actually, the research tells us that it is a perception, so you could fake it until you make it. That's fine. But that perception that you care. It also turns out that high standards by themselves don't matter at all, hardly at all. Being caring and nurturing by itself also doesn't matter. You have to be both. Right? The magic combination is high standards in my class. The bar's not going to be lowered, but I'm going to help you get over it. That I will do what it takes. I care about you. I believe you can do it, and I'm not going to lower the bar for you. That's not content. That's a personal sense of I believe in you and that you can do better, right? In fact, I'm neck deep in all of this behavioral brain research. I'm thinking I need to get another degree in neuropsychology, which didn't exist when I was in college, so it's like it's all new anyway. Testosterone, which actually makes you feel calm and confident, everybody. But it's primarily released when you exceed expectations, right? It's a really good thing to exceed expectations, and so that's the magic combination. So that's about relationships. Second, that technology's here, but it's a tool, right? It's not a strategy. So we're not trying to increase the amount of technology, right? Because chalk is a technology, right? It's a new technology. So if we had a strategy to increase the amount of chalk in our classrooms, we don't think that was pretty stupid, right? We want to increase learning, but you probably need a little chalk to increase learning. And finally, learning is really about change. We are really in the change business. That's not the indoctrination business. It's helping you learn how to manage, self-manage your own change. Because what you want to do is make yourself obsolete. Right? I was a piano teacher for many years, and people think, wow, all my students will sound like me. I think, really? I'm not trying to reproduce here, right? I want you to sound like you. And in fact, I want you to know how to make your own decisions and know that piece is ready for recital. No, it's not, right? You need to be able to manage that, because I'm not going to be here forever. So learning to manage your own change is really, really essential. That's really what we're trying to do. And again, technology relates to this, because all of this means, right, most of what you need to teach, what your students need to know for the jobs of the future, you can't teach them, because we don't know what it is yet. We have no idea what the jobs of the future are going to be. We have no idea what information you're going to need. Right? I have a daughter in New York who's a director of social media, because every 25-year-old should direct something, right? And right, title inflation. Sorry, right. But when 11 years when she was in high school, there was no such thing as social media, and now you can direct it. So what will they be directing in 10 years? I have no idea, right? So I can't teach you that. What I can teach you is that there are going to be things you're going to have to learn by yourself. And guess where you're going to learn them? Yeah, from your phone, from the internet, right? But if you can't tell which news is fake, or which report is not so reliable, or which video is by some guy in his underwear who doesn't know what he's talking about, you could end up in real trouble, right? Being able to discern, having digital literacy is a key skill for the future, right? So learning is about change. And so I summarize this as a new 3 R's. Some of you remember the old 3 R's. We're old enough to do that. But the new 3 R's really are what we do. What do we do for students? Relationships. Key for their lifelong future, not just what they learn, but also actually turns out happiness is related to those relationships. Single most important factor in later in life, feeling that you have enough money, making more money, lower divorce rate, lower obesity rate. Single most important factor for all of those things, one person, faculty member, staff, who cared about you as a human being in your learning. One person who believed that you could be a great poet or a great physicist. That turns out to really matter more than any of your content. Right? That mentoring, that relationship really does matter. One of the things I measure is, we just use this Gallup-Purdue index. We measure we ask the students, 10, 20, 40 years out, do you have enough money? Not how much money you make, because we're a liberal arts college, we were for women's college, we have lots of education, social work. They don't make a lot of money. But my students are more likely to say they have enough money than graduates of higher paying engineering schools and law school, right? My students, so I tell parents this. I say, look, right, our students have enough money because they have purpose and mission. They're making a difference in the world. And they had a mentor. And that's the connection between that lifelong happiness and that relationship. The second is resilience, because right, life is full of failure. Learning new things requires failure. So resilience is an essential skill. And finally, reflection. Right? You only really learn something new when it changes the things that you thought you knew before. Right? So it is about change. It's about, wow, I've learned something new. I have to stop, reflect, not just add it to my list, but actually change my assumptions, change what I was doing. Right? If you can get students to do that, you're done. Right? They're gonna have great lives. They can learn new things. They can integrate new information, and those are the critical skills, I believe, for the future. So, but we are here to talk about technology in part, and so technology has truly changed our world in lots of ways, but three key ones. The first is our relationship to knowledge. Right? When we were in college, some of us, right, the knowledge was relatively scarce. If you wanted to know something, you had to go to this thing called the encyclopedia. Wikipedia, which, if you think about it, was fairly reliable. It wasn't perfect, but it had no cat videos in it. Right? There were no jokes, there was no alternative articles, no fake articles to throw you off the scent, right? It might have been out of date, but it was fairly reliable, but relatively scarce. You had to go to the library thing with the books to find it, right? So now our situation is totally different. Now the students all arrive in college with a device that connects them to this world of information, which is mostly cat videos. Right? 25% of internet traffic is just video, right? So they're not mostly reading articles, or even that video is not mostly, TED Talks and Nobel Prize winners in Harvard and Stanford. Nah, it's cat videos, right? So, and fake news, and crazy stuff, and stuff people just made up. So our relationship to knowledge has changed. There's more available, and every day there's something new that you didn't know. So when you want to learn how to knit, just Google that. You want to know how to fix your washing machine? You Google that, right? There's a YouTube video. I mean, when I had needed to change the plug on the 3 or 4 or 5 prongs on my dryer. I said, well, there's a video how to change the Maytag, F25 plug, and it's up. Oh, okay, unscrew this, right? Okay, save myself some money, right? So there is this great resource that's mostly garbage. So that's a whole new world for us that we have to think about, and how we live in it and teach it. So our students are constantly be exposed, and the truth is they have terrible digital literacy. Well, clearly most Americans do too, right? I mean, we're confused. What is true? What is not true? What is a high cholesterol? I don't know, right? I mean, all of a sudden we're these arcane things, and we're being bombarded with various kinds of things. So our students are confused as to how to find reliable information, how to evaluate that, and then mostly how to integrate it. So my strategy here is to accept this and recognize that more is not always better, right? They are confused so much they call it a smartphone, as if it were smart. Smart is not the person who knows the most. Smart is the ability to change your mind. And that lesson really needs to get into our students so they can recognize it's not, don't memorize more, that's not going to help you, right? Because it's going to change tomorrow. Yes, you got to memorize some things you have to know. But mostly smart is the ability to change your mind. Because Siri does know more than you do. And she always will, right? So the question is, how do you use that? How do you interact with it? How do you interrogate Siri, right? So my analogy for this is exercise equipment, right? Because more is not always better, right? If I put an exercise bike in every room of your house, would I be helping? 2 in the kitchen, 3 in the bathroom, right? You have to get on it. We have to use it. It's how you use it that matters. So there's a job for somebody called a fitness coach. But what does a fitness coach do? Right? Get on the bike. Look at my pecs. Get on the right? Well, no. I mean, a fitness coach does know something about physiology and about the exercise bike. But mostly what a fitness coach gets paid to do is to know you. What do you want to do? You want to be an ER doc? You want to be a mountain climber? Oh, pedal faster, right? This is what you're going to have to do. What my class connects, this work connects to your goal. But I got to know your goal. I have to know what you want to do first. So understanding your students is always going to be something those talking heads on the internet won't have. Right, being able to connect. But think about that. That's actually what a fitness coach gets paid to do, is to understand the client. So your real title, professor? Are you kidding me? Siri professes too. Everybody's professing these days. Your value is in being a cognitive coach, helping people learn how to change. That's really what you do. You're cognitive coaches. So relationship to knowledge has changed. But social proximity has really, really changed, right? The meaning of friends, of course, has changed. If you don't believe me, you got a strong stomach, ask your teenagers or your young adults about dating, right? Well, don't actually, unless you have Tinder and, one swipe will change your life, right? I mean, right? Dating, are you kidding me? Right? Nobody dates anymore. They use their phone to find the opposite or same sex in the bar, right? GPS and technology has really totally transformed this, right? So my daughter calls me on a Saturday night and says, Dad, hey, I'm with my roommate and we've met some boys. I'm thinking, this That's kind of like when you tell the doctor, doctor, I have a friend with a rash. What should my friend do, right? Yeah, right. So I'm thinking, well, this is right. What you really want to hear is a dad from your child on Saturday night. She's met some boys in a bar. Great. She says, Dad, no, it's okay. They don't have STDs. Because you can look that up online. Health Vaughn. It used to be called Hulu, right? Helps you get laid. Get it? The good people of Hawaii objected to this, and so now it's called Health Vana. But you can literally put your test, your AIDS, gonorrhea test results, and the other people can look you up, right? And so, I mean, I get this, and they got good ratings on Lulu, like Yelp, only for dating, right? You rate the others, right? And then Tinder. I said, well, have you met them? And I said, no, we're talking on Tinder, but they're in the bar with me, but we haven't met yet. That's considered, right? And of course, as a dad, I say, honey, those are strangers. Remember that talk we had when you were 4? Right? Those are strangers! Right? But for her, this is normal. This is normal. This is how you meet people. So I say, don't be careful. Those are strangers. And my daughter, actually, her reply on text, because she wouldn't be talking to me on the phone, right? It's a text, right? No, Dad, it's safer this way. Right? I know more about them. I've been right. Think about it, right? I'm not going to go for a job interview and not look up my employer. It's safer this way. So now let's talk about office hours. Are you kidding me? Come to your office having never met you before? Having not checked out your profile on LinkedIn? That wouldn't be safe. My parents wouldn't approve. Right? That's not safe. So if you're not on social media, you look a little unsafe. Isn't that weird? But the normal assumptions have been reversed, that I want to first make sure you're okay. I want to look at your picture, look at a little bit about you, check out your LinkedIn profile, look at pictures of your pets on Facebook. So you don't have to do all of that, but my advice is you need to have some online presence that's not your campus system. You should clearly have if you don't have your picture on your campus profile, that's scary. I should be able to see what you look like before I go to your office, right? But you should probably have some other site that humanizes you a bit for your students. You don't have to friend them all. LinkedIn is perfectly safe. Twitter is fun, right? But some sense of, oh, they're human. Isn't that weird that you have to be online to be human? But again, the world has kind of, upside down at the moment. And so that is another way in which that happens. So I do recommend that you think about that social proximity has changed. Because your office is a scary place. I mean, you have degrees I've never even heard of. You have those dusty things. I've never seen, I don't use those. I use my iPad or my phone, right? And so most of the reading they'll show you, most of the reading they do is actually on their phone. So you're weird, right? Always remember how weird you are. You like school so much you're still here. That's not normal. People want to graduate and leave, right? You're still here. So you have different expectations. I just want to be here as short as amount of time as possible. Do I have to come to your office? Right? And also, you're not there 24/7. My bank is open online all the time. Why would I go to a branch? I haven't been to a branch. Actually, there are no branches of my bank, right? Chase Bank. I moved from Texas 4 years ago. Haven't been to a branch since. Because the branch is in Texas. And I said, well, I got to find a new bank. And they said, no, you don't. My daughter actually said, no, you don't. You use your phone. So I can deposit checks on my phone. Yeah. Right? Everything. I haven't been to the bank in 4 years. And there's no branch within 300 miles of where we live. It's okay. They're online. I check it online every couple, right? So that's a totally different world from what we're used to. And so you've got to be prepared for students. And it gets not just 18 and 20-year-olds, right? I'm a 56-year-old man who doesn't go to a bank, right? Plenty of people are used to the idea of online banking. So think about this, right? I never go to a branch, but what happens if my bank goes down on the website goes down on Sunday night at 11 o'clock? I'm pissed. It's 11 o'clock, it's Sunday. I want to do my banking now. I don't have time tomorrow. I got to go to work, right? So that assumption that you're always on, yeah, that's a tough one too. So my suggestion is you've got to be really careful about that in your syllabus. So my advice is put some words in your syllabus, which you should not distribute, just put online, right? So it's always available, as to when you're available and how. I answer email within 24 hours. I only answer email on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until 5 o'clock. Right? As long as I know what the rules are, right? When are my open hours? Right? Before you go to a restaurant, you check Yelp. Is the restaurant open? I don't drive first. I just check, is it open? So I want to know if you're open or not. If you're closed, that's okay, as long as I know before I send you 400 emails. Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? What about the test results? Where's my, right? Just tell me. It'll be 48 hours. But you gotta do what you say. If you say I'm gonna get the test graded in 48 hours, you can't wait 49. Where's the test? Where's the test? Right? You're gonna get that. So, but being clear in advance really makes a difference. And you has to be something online, right? I am gonna be on a Facebook chat room tonight from 9 to 10 to answer questions. Office hours is probably less useful. Try this. Try being on Facebook just, between 9 and 10 the night before the test. Just be in a chat room or be in a Google Hangout, right? Ask your tech people which of those yours. And again, your students, depending on age, will be different, right? The Facebook is for old people now, so your older students are more likely to be on Facebook, and your 25-year-olds are like, that's for my mother, right? My 92-year-old mother's on Facebook, posting embarrassing pictures of me in those shorts from the 70s that I never should have worn, right? And it's like, thanks. So, right, so it depends on the age, but having some way to interact with them outside of class, right? Because think about it. I just put the kids to bed. I don't want to go to your office hours. I just need to ask this question. So another way to do this on Facebook is to have a group for your course, or LinkedIn or whatever. There's lots and lots of ways to do this. But have a public group, not public in the sense that anybody can join, but public in the sense that students can see each other's, right, a discussion board kind of thing. But you can ask questions of each other, so when you go to sleep, they can still talk to each other, right? You need to enable that sense of community in your students. And if you really, again, don't believe me about any of this, the information on Gen Z, right? The iPhone really did change human behavior. They are not hanging out with their friends as much in the top left. They are driving later. They are dating less. They are having less sex. I don't know how they did this research, but, and they're getting less sleep. They're more likely to feel alone. The iPhone really did change, and we're seeing this in mental health and anxiety and depression, right? So, but that's powerful. Somebody invented something that made college students have less sex. Are you kidding me? Yes, that actually happened. So, in my view, that's a non-trivial change in human history. Because I remember being a teenager, and that's all I thought about. Every 6 seconds or whatever it was, definitely. So if you want to know also, they say the strangest thing I learned as a college president, right? So it's the first thing they touch in the morning, the last thing they touch at night. This is their cell phone, right? They 67%. It's the last thing they touch at night. Again, don't think about that too much. But when they use the restroom, right, 30%, right, they can't use the bathroom without a phone. So we have a plumber, strangest thing I learned as a college president, whose primary job is getting cell phones out of toilets. That's a job. But it's not the strangest thing I learned as a college president. The strangest thing I learned as a college president is they want it back. So if you remember nothing else from today, never borrow a student's phone. All right? So the third is gaming, and this is probably a more subtle change, but customization in gaming is now the world in which our students live. So right, it's not just Starbucks. Remember Have It Your Way? What a funny campaign, right? Everything is now Have It Your Way, right? Amazon will deliver in an hour, right, the toilet paper that you need by drone. Right? I don't know if you're close enough, but we're close enough to Whitemarsh that literally we can get drone-delivered toilet paper in an hour. That's pretty customized. But also think about gaming, right? This average student, the average 18-year-old has now played more hours of video games, 10,000 hours on average, both boys and girls, before they get to college. That's more than if they sat in class for perfect attendance. They spent more hours playing video games than they have in class. So how's a video game work? It's totally customized, right? You're on level 5, you're on level 50, you're on level 500 because, right, it's customized. So what is the word they use for gaming? Pleasantly frustrating. Think about that, right? You all want to be pleasantly frustrated at once, right? Because if it's too pleasant, what happens? You're bored, you quit. If it's too hard, you're bored, you quit. So you want to be in the zone. That's where our classes want to be. We want everybody to be pleasantly frustrated all the time. It's a really good phrase. The problem is for a game, I can individualize that for everybody. So I can have thousands of people playing, all at different levels, all pleasantly frustrating, all at once. Then they enter your class and they go, wait, stop, say that again. You're still going. My remote's not working. You're still talking, right? Slow down. You know, so they're not used, it's a weird thing. So they are used to a customized gaming environment. And then what we do as teachers, good teachers, teach to the middle. That's what we do. That's hard to do when you're competing against a student who has got this customized idea. So how do we make college more like a good video game? Right, that's one of our questions. So, all right, so I'm gonna try to give you a couple of ideas. Oh, there's my picture, right? This is the game face, right? The epic win, right? But it's interesting because it's characterized as urgency plus concentration plus optimism. Isn't that what we want in our students? Right? We want them to take that attitude they have about gaming and apply it to college. And so one of my solutions is use games, right? So I've put this Merlot site in here. You don't have to invent your own video games. Somebody else already has, right? I have these jazz history games that I use in my class. I give them away for free, right? So you teach constitutional law, biology, math, right? There's lots and lots of not just videos online, but actual sites where you can go and play games, get points, right? And think about this. You do this all the time, right? You fly American Airlines or you stay in the Hilton Hotel because you get points, or we like points. It's called gamification, right? So you don't have to change the words in your class, although it does work, right? Say, okay, no more midterms, no more finals. In my class, we have 7 quests. There are some optional quests. There's a mid-quest, and there's a final quest. You must complete the final quest, right? So, I mean, sounds more, right? The assignment is such a hard word. So there are some ways to do this, but I think the one way to do is actually to sort of set up your classroom like a game where you collect points and you have some individual control over which things you do and how long it takes you. And again, a lot of that has been done for you can probably find a game. All right, so I don't have time to do that. So my suggestion is that you go to Google and pretend you're a student, which means you go to Google. Well, I'll do one of these, right? So you go to and pretend you're a student, which means you're going to Google what's ever on the syllabus topic, right? So you're going to, right? Some students are smart if they're going to go to Yale or Stanford or Harvard and just look up online free courses, right? There's a ton of this stuff. If you've not been to edX, look at these are free courses, self-paced courses in multiple languages covering all sorts of topics, right, from some of the best universities on the planet, because Harvard, right after a lot of pressure, had $85 million to spend. They designed some pretty good courses for $85 million, right? So Stanford has Coursera. There's a lot of free content. So look, there's a lot of great content that students can find. There's various sorts of things, different languages. Right, there's certainly more computer science, and I thought, oh, they won't be teaching, I teach jazz improvisation. Of course, that Berklee School of Music signed up, and they have their jazz improvisation on. I'm competing now. If you haven't seen, right, Gary Kasparov is now teaching chess. Right, Ron Howard is teaching directing online. Really? They're going to take directing from you instead of Ron Howard? Come on. Right? So, the competition has certainly, increased. But of course, most students aren't going to do this. They're not going to go look at good content. They're going to go to Google and they're going to type in, what's ever on your syllabus. So they're going to go feminist theory, whatever. They're going to look for feminism definition, right? Whatever. They're going to do that. But right, that's what you might find. Notice that Google will adjust for you as a person. But they're not going to even click on that button. They're going to this button called video. Right? And then you probably haven't used that tools button. See any duration over there? Yeah, wrong. Right? Short. Oh, this isn't. So, but the real thing is they're going to look for some kind of, they're going to click on the first click. And look at all of these cool videos that I could find. I'm going to do. Right? And they're probably going to click on, so you should do this for your topic, because they're probably going to click on the first hit and then go, yeah, okay. Hang on, can I get some sound off the computer? Through the it's in the HDMI, it's playing. I just need to, can you just turn up the audio on the laptop? So first of all, right, you can do this. This is this extra normal site. You can just put in they actually animate it for you, right? You can actually make these yourself without. Yes, no, no volume. Okay, it's just I need laptop volume. That's okay. You can all Google feminism explained. It is the first hit, and I'll give you a hint. It's satire. But they're not going to know that. They're going to go, wow! And in fact, if you scroll down through the comments, you'll see that they're thinking, wow, I don't have to do your 15-page reading because I nailed it. I found a 3-minute video. And if you know anything about the under 30 crowd, probably the under 40 crowd, but we won't cast aspersions, they'll spend 3 hours looking for a 3-minute video. So just give them the video and say, watch this video, and take an index card, because it's low tech, and write down 3 mistakes. Find a problem. What's another source? What's contradictory? What evidence does not indicate? What contradictory evidence? Some kind of critique, because that's the digital literacy they mostly need, right? Find some way to undermine. So did you think this was true? Did you think it was good? Why? What would be a better source in 3 minutes, right? There's lots of good content, but they may not find it. So part of my strategy is, make it messy, because that's what they're going to encounter. Let them find some content, but have them then discriminate, bring in that card, put your name on it, pass it to your neighbor, who turns it over and writes a rebuttal. It's the first thing I do in class. It takes 2 minutes. But it means everything you find on the internet, we're going to interrogate. We're not going to assume anything is true, right? We're going to find me, because look, remember Cliff Notes? Well, Cliff and his notes are now videos, right? And of course, they have little yellow bars that say, here are the themes of the play, and here are the major characters, right? So fine, watch the Hamlet video, because I know you're going to anyway. What theme does Cliff Notes leave out? Right? You can't get that, right? You got to watch the Cliff Notes video, which is fine, but now what theme did they not give enough, right? What character did they give short shrift to, right? So they'll go to another cheat site. But that is, in some way, that's okay, right? They're interacting with that. So okay, did it work? Okay, it does work. Okay, that's great. So I won't play that for you. But what I do want to do is give you one other. So there's better content. Right here is. This is called Crash Course. A couple of $1 million from Bill Gates. Right. He talks too fast. It's already been closed captioned, which is good. It accounts for your ADA. All that stuff has been done. It's high production value. It's not a 50-minute lecture from some guy at Harvard. It's somebody closer to their own age. It's also short. Right. So these are very popular. The Khan Academy. They've almost all already used the Khan Academy, right? They've had some. This is how they do their homework. They didn't ask their parents to help them with algebra. That's very old. We did that, right? Maybe our kids did it. But nobody today says, Mom, help me with algebra. Because the mom says, I'm making dinner. Ask Mr. Khan, right? That's what happens, right? So there's lots of good content, lots of band content. There are songs, of course. There are plenty of songs. One of my favorites being... So you're wondering where they are during your physics courses. This is a graduate student at MIT in physics. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But he has way too much time on his hands. I mean, are you kidding me? Right? So, yeah. Here it comes. Right. So, but take a look at that number over on the left. 3,395,000 views. Yeah, that's probably more than when your physics class last week, right? That is a lot of views. So to this idea about learning hockey or right, this is really true. You have to know the analogies. Right? Most teaching is actually through analogies. Something is like something else. That only works if what it's like if you actually know the lingo, right? What it is that they like. So for most of us, and again, the sports thing is hard because, right, not everybody plays the same sport. So I have the same problem. I'm a soccer guy, right? European, soccer. I can talk that language. But my baseball or football American students are like, what are you talking about? The Prem? Who? I don't know those guys. So I switch. But of course, now the soccer kids are lost. So what we do is we teach by analogy, but we have, I ran out of time. I only have 3 more, I have 50 more examples, but I don't have, right? So what you want to do is make a podcast or some kind of thing where you're actually being deliberately redundant and say, here are 50 ways of explaining this concept. Here's a soccer analogy. Here's a gardening analogy. Here's a, political, different analogies. Here's the ones for the engineering students, right? Lots of different analogies for the thermodynamics. So that my one podcast on thermodynamics, but I've got 30 different ways of describing it, right? Or you could outsource it to your students and say, you describe this to your roommate. So here's a math assignment. Talk about functions. Describe how functions work in a way your roommate will understand. So my apologies, because this was not designed for a politically sensitive audience. Can you turn it up a little bit? It's backwards. Wide intercept. Zero skill. Higher slope. Right. So the point is that, so A, does he understand how functions work? Right? He's actually managed to, and it wasn't a problem set. He had to explain how functions work using an analogy his roommate would get. He did the video himself, didn't have no instruction on video, and then load it to YouTube. They can all do that, right? Now, again, if you don't know how to load a video on YouTube, how do you figure that out? Google, how do I load a video on YouTube? And there's a lot of help you can get, right? So my point is that you can actually outsource this to your students. So next year, so I have 30 of those. So next year, what do? I take the best 2 and I seed them, and I say, here are 2 good examples. And then after a few years, I've got soccer and I've got more analogies, so the student can then pick, right? So the boys might look at this and the girls, right, whatever. But that's a good assignment, but it also creates content for next year. All right. I talked about social proximity, announcements. Yeah, don't do announcements in class, because if you're not there, you're late, right? You just say, think about it. All announcements are online. They're in the thing. I'll send you the once-a-week email. Now they're more likely to read their email. And now you get that 5 minutes of class time back, which over the semester is a whole session, right? The other way to do this, don't send a syllabus, right? Never hand them a syllabus. The syllabus is online. It'll be in Canvas, Blackboard, whatever you use, right? It'll be available in an hour. Or I'll post it on Facebook or Twitter in an hour. Not now, because otherwise they'll go read it right now, right? Or I'll send it to you in an email link in an hour. Now they all check their email. Right? You got them to check their email because they've come to class wanting a syllabus, and you say, I'm not going to give it to you. So, but moving things out of the classroom like announcements, turns out students learn more when you're passionate about your subject. But that doesn't mean you just have to jump up and down. It sometimes means that you actually can show that you're passionate about their learning. And what's a funny way to do that? Send them a text on a Sunday afternoon. Hey, how's the Foucault coming? Don't worry, chapter 2 gets better. Just kidding. But keep going, right? I mean, but that little bit of encouragement actually makes the most difference to first-generation students, right? Because they don't know that chapter 2 is better, or they don't know there's some payoff. They also forgot their Foucault at their mom's house. So, and you don't have to actually be awake at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. You can pre-program it on Friday to say, over the weekend, here are my texts, right? But that kind of little hey, and again, think about that. Think about how, right? My doctor does this, right? I go to the doctor. And a week later, I get a text that says, hey, I hope you're feeling better. She cares. I know it's an automatic text. It doesn't matter. It still works. I feel like, oh, somebody's checking in with me. Right? So that, again, when they're not in your class, can you check in? It's not a lot of work. You set it up once a week. It takes 5 minutes. You send out a couple of texts. Hey, how's it going? Here's a tip. Here's one. Problem number 6 on the problem set is the hardest problem. If you get stuck, skip it. Because you know who that would have helped? Me. Because my mother, who never went to college or high school or middle school, said you do them in order, just like the professor said. I don't know where she got that information, but she told me that before I went to college, so I did that. So if I got stuck on number 6 on a Sunday, I stayed on number 6. I never got to the end of the problem set because nobody ever gave me that advice. But when I needed it was 3 o'clock on a Sunday or 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Hey, if you're stuck on number 6, just skip it. It's the hardest problem. So those little bit of hints both are helpful to first-generation students, but they also show that you care. So that's like social media can actually work to your advantage in interesting ways. They can make connections with each other. You can make connections. I introduce readings. Again, you're weird. You like to do the reading. They're not. So help them understand why they're going to do this. Build community, I talked about. And this is my favorite, right? So, hey, you asked a great question. What would you normally do? You'd answer it in class. Well, what is that teaching them? Smart people know all the answers. But what I want to teach you is that smart people think. And sometimes we think slowly. So that's a great question. I'm going to think about it. I'll email everybody in a couple hours. I'll send you a text later tomorrow when I've done some more research, right? Even if you know the answer. Because it sends the impression that because they want to be like you. And this is what they really want to be like. Someone who actually thinks, digests, doesn't always answer on their feet. Smart is the ability to change your mind. And I'm going to suggest that you do virtual office hours, at least try them a little bit. You do want to get them into your office. Try having office hours in a public place. That's less scary. It's less private, but it's also less scary. You can always move into your office for certain conversations. But try an online chat like or Twitter or on a Facebook group to get them to ask you questions, to get them to at least meet you first before they come to your office hours. This is out of date, so you can imagine 4 years later. But you can see that the smartphone trend has continued up. In the latest data. They are using their smartphones for more and more reading, which is why they're looking for videos, because the print is too small. Right? They don't like reading. They want to rather watch a video. So that is just a trend you've got to kind of counter. So one way to counter it, explain to them how reading is different and why they should be reading. I do ask I have quizzes before every class in our online system. It's a couple of 5 minutes, but I just want to know, did you watch the video? Did you do the reading? And I ask these kinds of questions, right? A little more, actually my favorite questions are, which of the following would you need? All of the following are true, right? Don't try Googling the answer. They're all true. Which of the following would be most relevant to arguing the case for X? Which of the following are you most likely to toss out as being less consequential evidence? Right, whatever, that kind of thing. So, but a couple of, just again, to keep them in the game. Think about that pleasantly frustrating, keep you engaged. This is my syllabus quiz, right? So I don't send you this, I don't give you a syllabus. I tell you the syllabus is online, and then before you come back, I've got to make sure you read it, so I give you a syllabus quiz, right? What's the answer? No, number fall in love. Fall in love is one of my learning outcomes, because falling in love with a subject is, in fact, the first step in change, right? You don't like sushi? I want you to love sushi. Oh, I changed. I used to not like sushi. All right, now I like Duke Ellington. Right, whatever it is, change involves that. So, so those are all correct answers except for number 2, which could be, but it just turns out not to be for me at this point. Great. Sweet. Learning is really about sleep, water, eating, exercise, and time. Not teaching. Teaching is about creating motivational circumstances. The one who does the learning, the one who does the work does the learning. So what you're really trying to do is to get students to get on the exercise bike, right? That's the person who learns. So time is what T is for. We can talk about the behavioral sleep is, of course, essential, et cetera. But time on task matters. So what you're really trying to do is to get your students to spend the time. So if you think about how do I motivate assignments, how do I create, what do I tell you before you do the reading? What do I tell you before the assignment? What you're really trying to do is inspire students to do the work, because only they can do it. It's actually less about understanding than we thought it was. It's really more about motivation. So this is a summary of the last 25 years of science of learning, right? We know that you learn what matters to you, right? right? It has to actually, it matters to my goals, I'm interested. And your brain actually does this, even if you really want to learn that. But your brain is having this thing in the background, no, you don't need that, right? That's what your brain does. Think about if you remembered everything tomorrow. 90% of what happened today is going to be gone tomorrow. Your hippocampus is going to say, don't need that, don't remember that, write that to the hard disk, right? That's actually what your brain does. That's why sleep is important, because you're transferring things from your hippocampus to deep storage, right? Hippocampus is just like your RAM, right? So your brain is going to discard most things. So how do you, in fact, help students? What do I need to remember? What is the important thing? And it has to be personal. You can't just say, I should remember that. It doesn't work that way. You've all tried that. Knowledge is necessary but not sufficient. And testing actually matters a lot, right? Tests are not bad. It's the type, it's what you're testing. But retrieval is essential for practice and learning. So again, I offer a test every day. I talked a lot about analogies. Elaboration is a key part of learning. Explain to your roommate. So highlighting is bad, right? Because you highlight, looks familiar. I highlighted it yesterday. Now close your book, call your mother, explain it to her. Much better study technique. Can you put it in your own words on an index card and bring it to class? Abstracting. Turns out that failure really matters. So the question for me as a design question is, where do you put the failure? And my suggestion is in class. And if you want these, you can go to teachingnaked.com. And you can find all these charts and this on the handout. It says faculty handout under borrow. Then you don't have to get them off your phone, and they'll be crisp and clean. And interleaving, which I won't talk about. That's another brain thing. But this is my design, right? So this is the last thing I'll do, because you're hungry, and so am I. So I've taken that research and said, what is the design that we need to do? So when you ask students what matters most in teaching, and I say, do a concept map. What are all things that matter? Then you can sort these into categories. One set of category is the personal, human. Are you funny? Are you approachable? Do I think you're honest? Right? Then the other is design qualities. Are you fair? Are you organized? Do you show up on time? Right? So I can't help you with the human piece. Right? I can't make you funny. If you're not funny, don't try. What they mostly care about is authentic. Are you human? Are you a human being or a robot? Right? They want to know that you're a human being. But on the design piece, I can help you, right? So start with this information. You start in the middle. You know about content, right? That's what matters to you. Your students don't necessarily care about that. They start on the outside. Literally, they're outsiders to your content. So motivate. So what do they already know? Is your topic scary? Because what happens if something is scary? Right? Your brain sends everything you want to learn, right? Goes to your amygdala first, right? The back of your brain is close. Your neocortex is in the front, right? And it checks it for threat. Because if this is threatening, what do? Right? The panther is running toward you. Shut off the bit that says, what a pretty panther. Boom! Right? You don't want that. You want to say, shut that part of your judgment off and run! Right? So your brain checks for threat. So if I perceive something as threatening, your brain literally shuts down its neocortex, right? So if my subject, and threats can be a lot of things, not just panthers, right? So my example is, think about this. You're going to teach racial profiling and racial bias to the Chicago Police Department in a mandatory 8-hour training on Saturday, starting at 6 a.m. What's your problem? Your problem is motivation, right? So where are you going to start to reduce their threat assessment? Do you start with race? Do you start with bias or profiling? What do you need to happen first? You need to get everybody to relax. So where do you start? So I call this the entry point. Every class, every assignment, everything you teach doesn't start with your content. It starts with entry point. What are your students' first exposure going to be to your subject? I'm scared of that. Don't like that. So where do you start with the Chicago Police Department? Give me some idea. Where would we start? Don't say donuts. But sure, donuts would work, right? How about sports? Does anybody here like the Cubs? How about the White Sox? Am I going to get everybody on the same page? So let's talk about baseball for a while. Why? Because right, it's an easy, it's no threat. Oh, I hate why do you hate the White Sox so much? Oh, the Cubbies. What? Your daddy was a Cubs fan, and your granddaddy too. So can I give you season tickets to the White Sox? No? Right? Do you see where we're going? But I don't want to go there right away. I want to have a topic that says, well, maybe bias is something that you inherited, or you just you look at the world a certain way because you're a Cubs fan. Now I can, right? So, but I didn't start with my subject. I started with something that was easy to talk about, get people, remember that pleasantly frustrating? Get people engaged, get them to want to be here, get them to relax. So entry point is the thing we don't talk about in graduate school, because again, you were weird, you liked the subject, you were there on purpose. But for most of your students, what their assumptions about their first exposure, their contact, so they start out there. So once you do that, you design, that's the pedagogy piece, you design an entry point. Then you've got to figure out how they're going to practice recall. Are they going to elaborate? Where is the complexity or failure? I like to put it in the class, not at home. So I give you the easy problems at home and the hard problem set in class. Everybody get a piece of chalkboard, whatever. And then reflection, right? So last piece of advice. Don't ever hand them an assignment or a paper with a grade on it. Ever. You have computers for this. You want them to read your feedback. Feedback is essential for learning. But grades are not. Grades are something we just have to do for the system. So what do you do when you hand back papers with grades on? The students read that, they turn to the back, look at the letter grade, stuff it in their backpack or their briefcase, and then get mad and walk out. They never read the feedback you spent an hour working on. So try this. Here are your papers. 15 minutes left in class. Here are your papers. No grades on them, but lots of feedback. Read the feedback. I've entered the grades on, what's your learning system? The grades are on Blackboard. They are hidden. Blackboard lets you release them in 15 minutes. They will be released in 15 minutes, so don't go there now. They're not available for you, but they're there. So first, read the feedback. Everybody breathe, read the feedback. Right? They're actually reading your feedback in class. You're watching them. Now, give them a one-page, what I call a cognitive wrapper. This is also on my website. You can just borrow the template. A cognitive wrapper. You customize it for your problem set, your whatever. So how did you prepare? How did you do the assignment? Right? Did you work alone? Did you work in a pair? Did you spend just the night before? Did you start 6 weeks ago? Whatever. What percentage of your time did you spend doing various things? Where do you think you lost points? Right? Make them reflect, I could have done that better. You seem to not think my thesis was very good. Right? Make them reflect on that. And then what would you do differently next time? It's a very simple one page. It's not graded. I don't even have to collect them. I just want you to reflect on how you did, having read my feedback, and then 20 minutes later, you'll get to see the grade. But they have to estimate their grade and what they did in first. So that 15 minutes will totally change how they think about grades and reflection in your feedback. But that's the design piece of teaching, right? Not the content piece. It's the design of how you help students care, and that's really what we do. So what you do is hard. I admire you for it. But remember that, right, it's not just a hard job. It is a job that's primarily about those two things. Be a human being, right? Your humanness, your relationships to students really matter. And your design, the way that you think about how they encounter the material, when the sequence that you do things in, those are things you have control over. Those are things that really, really matter. So teaching is hard. Pedagogy is even harder. But you were here today, so you win the prize. And I applaud you for what you do, because our students desperately, desperately need what you have to offer. And the truth is, nobody else in our country is stepping up to do it. You have the most important job for democracy. So thank you for doing it. And it's hard. Keep doing it. Thank you. So it's either me or lunch. So I can take a minute, a couple of questions, and then we can go to lunch if you want, or you can just kill it. Yes. Hang on. I'll go back here. It's all right. I'm mobile.
I just have a question for you about when you're talking about texting students, and I'm curious about how you also maintain like a healthy boundary with students, because all of the things that you're suggesting are really important, but I also think sometimes it can go the other way.
Fantastic question. So boundaries are really important. Part of my suggestion, I have a syllabus template on my website too, where I suggest that you give them, right, those parameters, right? Don't text me on the weekend, or here's my cell phone, or here's this, or home, whatever. Some of us used to put home phone, right? The good news is, do you have VoIP here? Do you have a? Right, so you can create a new number that you can use only from your laptop. a news, right? You don't have to give them your cell phone number. You can text them from your laptop, so you can, or your office number, right? So they don't know you're in your office. So you can now create an additional, so when I text students like on the admissions process, I do this whole thing, but I don't use my own phone. I use a phone that I'm sitting at my computer. So I would do that texting or whatever and the same thing is true from your social media accounts, right? Create a social media account of you, Professor Smith. You don't want your mother and your students in the same space, trust me. So and then give them parameters. You know, I will send you text this. You know, and you have to ask them for their phone number for text. I use GroupMe. You know, one of these. So again, you make a group. It's everybody's phone number. You know, there are various ways of doing this. Again, 18-year-old could help. Your students can help you answer this question. But you're absolutely right. You want to not. I don't have them all friend me. LinkedIn I'm okay with. Whoever wants to be on LinkedIn with me, join up. But don't friend me if I don't. Right? Because you know, and you don't need to see pictures of my dogs. Right? So those are different kinds of things. And so I keep the professional and the personal separate. And that would be my advice. That's a good question. Yeah.
You can actually download on your phone, and students can join without you knowing their number, and they don't know your number as well. Remind.
Yes, there are lots of Remind. That's another. So there are lots of these various sorts of things. And again, your tech people. Again, if you have a VoIP system here. You know, I don't have a phone in my office anymore. I just have my computer. So wherever my computer is with me, I can use that phone number, which is my office number technically, but it's really my computer office phone number. And so I use that for interacting with students. And again, they think it's great because it's like they can have me on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock when I'm at home using that. But that's the number they use for me. It's not my cell. It's not so. But you're right. That's a very important question, and those are great ways. Any other question? Yes, sir.
Why are you here? Why aren't we watching you on a YouTube video? And what do you see as the benefits of in-person versus video presentation?
Right. So I do have TED Talks, and I'm online, and you can some of the same jokes will reappear. And so again, it's not unlike theater and movies, right? There's a place for both. So the early theater was just, they would go into the theater and they would film, right, some guy in tights doing Hamlet on stage. But if you think about the difference between Spider-Man the movie and a video, DVD of Spider-Man the musical. It's not the same thing, right? They both have their interests, right? So, I can watch the Met Opera at the movie theater. It's different, but, I get something out of that, right? I like going to the opera better, but there is something about going to see Tosca at the movies in a couple of weeks, right? So from my point of view, you have to think about how do I use the media the best way to do it? So those little short videos are great for content, right? And that guy that does the Khan Academy, right? They're 3 minutes. They're called playlists. They're not called lectures, right? So if you want to learn, about thermodynamics, you can find a zillion little videos online. So, if I'm going to do, so part of it is I make connections, right? I know my audience. So the guy online doesn't know the audience. So, one time is hard because I don't know you, right? But if this was my class, the first thing to do is get to know everybody, right? Find ways to figure who are you, how do you get to know each other, build community, right? I would prioritize those activities when we're together. And so again, I would have had you watch this online before I got here. So what I often do is say, watch the talk online, and when I come, we'll do we'll do something interactive. And so that's harder to do when you're just the one-hour stand-up guy. But indeed, I do think it's a difference. Now, of course, when you're the 1 hour visiting guy, I can say things that he can't say, right? I can, because I get to leave. So they're different. It's like your guest speaker. It's like, wow, the guest speaker was really good. It's like, I've been saying that all semester. But, Professor Jones is from some other campus, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, it's like the Bible. So, that's just the way it works. And so, you just have to know that that's a role you're playing in, and so you're more likely to laugh at my jokes. I have it, But it does, again, presence matters, right? There's a reason I started off with some humor. There's a reason I'm looking at you, and I'm talking as a faculty member. Because what I mostly did today was build rapport. I threw out a couple of, tidbits, but you can find all those in the books, right? What I did today was build rapport. So even though it was mostly one way, not my favorite mode, But it was about building trust and rapport in a sense that I get the problem and, I'm a person. So, there is a role for that. So the question is, what do you do, especially if you're not a performer type? Because I'm a performer, right? I'm a musician. So, so for some people, the answer would be never lecture. For other people, it's like, no, you're funny. You should be up there telling jokes. They'll like you, right? And also tell stories. So my advice is be authentic. That doesn't mean jokes. It means, who are you? And again, even if you didn't struggle in math, make something up. Because they want to know that you had some experience that relates to them. So tell them about your failure, about what some sense of who you are as a person. I've taught on small campuses and big campuses. Small towns are interesting because in a small town, you see the kids at the grocery store. They go, "Wow, you're buying watermelon, huh? I know what you eat." I mean, there's that whole. Of course, now it's all online, so that's another place where that online thing can work, right? Is to have. So for some faculty, if you're comfortable, especially some of my younger faculty, they'll get on Instagram and let the students connect, like, friend, whatever it is on Instagram. Because then they get us, "Wow, look, they have pets. I have pets. I like you." So it can happen in person. It can happen online. You've got to find the place that's most comfortable for you. But for me, the relationship, the personal, the sense of community and connecting, building rapport is really what we do when we're face to face. Is that? All right. You're ready for lunch. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Bowen.